In a breathtaking saga of missteps and miscalculations, even the most powerful figures among us may falter. The undeniable truth is that anyone can make mistakes. However, upon realizing their blunders, most individuals choose to relinquish their course. Yet, for those who refuse to acknowledge their errors, not only birth additional misjudgments, but find themselves trapped within the confines of their own making. Russian President Vladimir Putin stands as a prime example of this, tangled within a web of his own weaving, repeatedly stumbling from one mistake to the next. The news emanating from Russia is laden with revelations of Putin's empire, teetering on the edge of abject chaos. Day after day, the Russian military endures an onslaught of distinct crises, with internal strife and unrest reaching alarming heights. At the epicenter of this upheaval, the notorious Wagner Group's maneuvers have succeeded in exacerbating tensions within the Russian army and among the nation's populace. As the most recent fox pass committed by the Wagner Group comes to light, Russia's simmering unease reaches an unbearable fever pitch. Bereft of any means to dissolve the escalating tensions, Putin watches helplessly as chaos threatens to engulf Russia at any moment. An in-depth investigation by the Battlefront News team dives headlong into the Wagner Group's actions, exploring the broader implications of their tactics on Russia's detainment practices, the trajectory of the ongoing war, and the vital role independent journalism plays in uncovering the truth. Initially perceived as a potential bulwark for Putin's regime, this shadowy mercenary organization has instead become a destabilizing force that persistently undermines his authority. Once upon a time, Putin enthusiastically championed the Wagner Group, and its enigmatic leader enjoyed the distinction of being among the president's closest confidants. However, the landscape has since shifted dramatically, with the organization's growing influence leading to a bitter rivalry between the two parties. This feud is further fueled by the Wagner Group's illicit operations, including an array of war crimes, barbaric combat tactics, and gruesome execution methods that have become their grim signature. Moreover, the group's involvement in illegal arms and drug trading has drawn international condemnation, with economic sanctions imposed against Russia as a result. Despite the chasm that continues to deepen between the Kremlin and the Wagner Group, Putin remains heavily reliant on their forces in his quest for victory in Ukraine. Consequently, the Wagner Group is bestowed with extraordinary privileges, such as the right to recruit prisoners for their cause. In exchange for their freedom, these prisoners are conscripted into the mercenary army, where they often face certain death in the most perilous combat zones. As the grim reality of this situation is exposed, fewer prisoners are willing to accept the Wagner Group's offers, causing the organization to face a rapid decline in its numbers. Desperate to replenish its ranks, the Wagner Group doubles down on its recruitment efforts within Russian prisons, ultimately resulting in a series of harrowing incidents. Prisoners who refuse to enlist are subjected to abominable treatment, with their whereabouts shrouded in secrecy and despair. Through the diligent work of independent news agencies, evidences of these forced conscriptions is brought to light, igniting a firestorm of fury among the Russian people. This exposure serves to drive a wedge between the Wagner Group and the Russian military, exacerbating already strained relations. With tensions soaring to a breaking point, British intelligence warns of the potential for a revolt within the Russian army, a prospect that fills Putin with dread. As Putin confronts this nightmarish scenario, the future of Russia hangs in the balance. Questions swirl around the true power of the Wagner Group, the consequences of their insidious recruitment tactics, and the potential fallout from the rising tensions between the mercenaries and the Russian military. Amid tumultuous landscape, the Russian people find themselves grappling with uncertainty and fear, wondering what lies ahead for their nation. The revelations regarding the Wagner Group's inhumane practices and nefarious dealings have sent shock waves throughout the country, undermining any semblance of trust the public may have had in the government's leadership. With discontent and disillusionment spreading like wildfire, the foundation of Putin's reign appears to be crumbling under the weight of its own missteps. As the situation unfolds, international observers are closely monitoring the escalating conflict between the Wagner Group and the Russian military. For nations around the world, understanding the implications of this standoff is critical in navigating their relationships with Russia and preparing for potential future outcomes. Allies and adversaries alike find themselves treading cautiously, unsure of how the shifting dynamics within Russia will impact their own interests and strategies. Meanwhile, the families of the conscripted prisoners are left to grapple with their own private anguish, desperately hoping for the safe return of their loved ones who have been coerced into joining the Wagner Group's ranks. Their voices, once silenced, now echo across the globe, thanks to the relentless pursuit of truth by independent journalists. The plight of these prisoners has become emblematic of the broader struggle faced by the Russian people, a struggle for transparency, justice, and the very soul of their nation. The Wagner Group's continued descent into infamy has far-reaching ramifications, not only for Russia but for the entire international community. Its well-documented history of war crimes, coupled with its penchant for engaging in illicit activities, has painted a target on its back. Governments across the world face mounting pressure to condemn and take action against this rogue organization, while simultaneously grappling with the delicate balance of power in an increasingly volatile global landscape. In the midst of this chaos, one must consider the potential implications for Putin's leadership. With tensions reaching a crescendo, there is an ever-growing possibility that his grip on power may weaken or even collapse. Putin's nightmare could quickly become a reality if the rift between the Wagner Group and the Russian military continues to widen, threatening the very foundation upon which his rule has been built. The fate of his presidency hangs precariously in the balance, casting a long shadow over Russia's future. As the world watches with bated breath the intricate web of alliances, rivalries, and competing interests that have defined the relationship between Putin, the Wagner Group, and the Russian military become even more entangled. The delicate dance of power and control has reached a tipping point, with the potential to send shock waves through Russia and the international community. In the end, it becomes evident that the Wagner Group's unchecked growth and brazen actions have placed Russia at a critical juncture. The nation must now grapple with the consequence of these actions, as well as the role that Putin has played in fostering the rise of this menacing organization. The Russian people thrust into the spotlight on the world stage face a stark choice: to confront the grim reality of their situation and demand change, or to continue living under the oppressive shadow of a regime that has enabled the Wagner Group's relentless march towards infamy. It is up to the people of Russia and global community to take a stand against abuses perpetrated by the Wagner Group, and in doing so, carve a path toward a more just, transparent, and accountable future. In this defining moment, the decisions made will not only shape the fate of Russia, but will reverberate across the world, setting the stage for the geopolitical landscape of the years to come.